This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. It's Friday. I am Jamie Pags filling in for Mac, and I am with Hall of Fame boxing writer Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm always stereotyped as being a boxing guy. Even though I'm on a sports show, I have to talk all sports shows. I feel a little like Jethro Bodine of the Beverly Hillbillies. He's actually the son of the former world heavyweight champion Max Baer, but he was always cast in that role of Jethro in the Beverly Hillbillies, even though he tried to get all these other acting roles. It was hard to escape that stereotype. But I don't mind it.
Once you get typecast in a specific way.
I don't mind it. To me, it's a good thing.
Well, I mean, everybody's got a claim to fame. The fact that you're in the Hall of Fame for something is better than most people. You know, I'm not in the Hall of Fame just yet. I'm working there. I'm way to it, but
we're going to have a Northeast Streaming Network Hall of Fame, and we got to, your name will be on the ballot.
Well, they do actually have the Hall of Fame for football fans. That fans can get selected, and maybe next week we'll start touting that, because you could actually log in and say that you'd like the Philly Sports Guy to be the Hall of gets inducted into the Ford Hall of Fans, which has its own wing in the Hall of Fame. So you wouldn't get a bust; I'd get a plaque that kind of looks like me. So seeing that mohawk on a plaque,
but you wouldn't get to talk in Canton. You wouldn't get during these ceremonies. You wouldn't
not like that. They
come up there. They would shake your hand. They'd hand you the plaque. They'd shake your hand, and then you'd be off the stage.
It's a little bit more than that. I think you also win a Ford truck.
So, wow, Ford truck.
Yeah, okay. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal, going on and stuff like that. So speaking, let's go right to it. Speaking about being in the Hall of Fame and things like that, there was news that came around through the NBA that they have decided to league-wide retire the number 6 of Bill Russell. Now,
I'm going to say, I'm going to say this with the NBA. You hear the announcement and you're supposed to smile and go along with it. What a wonderful gesture. How great it is to honor Bill Russell. The first thing I want to ask, why didn't they do it when he was alive if they were going to do it? You mean they first thought about it right after he passed away? I mean, a week after he passes away, that's when they first think about it? If they thought about this all along, why didn't you do it when he was still alive? Were you scared that Bill Russell was going to say, no, he doesn't want this done, and then you couldn't do it? Then you couldn't adhere to his wishes? Who knows how Bill Russell would have felt about it now? Maybe he would have been deeply on it. Maybe he wouldn't have wanted this done. Who knows? But why are they waiting now? It's not like the man, died suddenly, unexpectedly. He was 88 years old, and I don't get it. But, on the other hand, this is now going to kind of set up a precedent, okay? What are you going to do as far as number 23, Michael Jordan, goes? I can argue that Michael Jordan has had a greater impact on the NBA than Bill Russell. I can argue that the combination of Bird and Magic had a bigger impact on the NBA than Bill Russell. I can argue that Wilt Still Chamberlain did greater individual things than Bill Russell, and it wouldn't be much of an argument because he did. Bill Russell had the 11 rings. He was a member of a storied franchise. Now, you could say Bill Russell was a social advocate. He was he spoke out on things that bothered him, but Bill Russell wasn't an elected official. He wasn't more of a social advocate than, let's say, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Why not retire his number? He was a great player. I can argue he was a greater player than Bill Russell, arguably. I don't want to get into that debate because Russell was a great player, and I respected him not only as a player, but as a man, as an individual who went through a lot of bad things he shouldn't have gone through because of racism involved. A lot of bad things. And he overcame it, okay? The bad things, and spoke out about it. So kudos to Bill Russell there, the type of player and the type of man he is. But to retire his number individually, with that said, I'm against Pags retiring any individual number of a player. I wouldn't want to see Tom Brady's number permanently retired by the NFL. This is a guy who's gone to 10 Super Bowls. He's the most iconic player of his era. What about the great Jim Brown? Okay, I wouldn't want to see his number retired. I wouldn't want to see anyone's number retired, with the exception, I could say Jackie Robinson, in that sense. But even, in the case of Jackie Robinson, his fellow players in the Negro Leagues, we should be paying more tribute to them in a certain sense, Major League Baseball. But that's another issue, in itself. Bill Russell himself, someone I have tremendous admiration for, great player, and he endured a lot as an individual and spoke out about it. He was a very eloquent individual, very intelligent individual. I wish I had an opportunity to know him, to sit down with him, to spend time with him, because I feel I would have liked him a great deal. But to retire his number, now that you retired Bill Russell's number, what about Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? And we shouldn't wait until someone passes away if we're going to do it. My argument is, if you were going to do this and retire Bill Russell's number, do it while he was still alive, while he can enjoy it. Or change the logos once in a while. Jerry West doesn't owe the logo, the NBA logo. I would have been okay if they transitioned that to Bill Russell, at some point. Maybe every year, maybe change the logo to an iconic NBA player, something like that every year, who meant a lot, not only on the court, but on the social landscape. But to retire that number permanently, I just don't get a good feel of when they did it. Is, maybe even more so than them doing it when they did it. If you're going to do it when he's alive.
Well, and I agree with you to that extent, that honoring somebody posthumously, I get, he did so much for this and whatever, but we didn't think enough of it while he was alive. Now that he's dead, it's a much bigger deal. And I am in agreement with you. I feel that, first off, just talking about the 11 rings, he had a great team around him. So let's be for real. It wasn't Bill Russell like Wilt Chamberlain, where he had only him and he was carrying around 4 scrubs. No, Boston had an iconic coach who had won championships long before Russell got there, and then had an amazing team around him to be able to win all those championships. So
I got to correct. I got to jump in, Pags. I'm sorry. You listened patiently to me, and I'm not. I wish I had your patience, but when you said Chamberlain had 4 scripts, no, that's inaccurate. I mean, we give
a lot of times he had not a good amount of good players around him. Hal Greer was the one. Cunningham, I think, was on the one.
He had players like Hal Greer, Billy Cunningham on the Sixers.
And so we're talking about the one championship that he won, not talking about all the other games that he played in that he didn't win. Like that he played a lot of his time. He scored 100 points with the team. He had 4 scrubs around him. That's why he was able to score 100 points, because they kept feeding him the ball, because he was the only one that was really playing in that game. And that's what would happen. That when it came to playing against Bill Russell would only get the better of him, because Bill Russell actually could shoot the ball a little bit and would pull him out from underneath the basket, because he had to cover him some. So, and that's what would do it. So Bill Russell would be able to shoot over Wilt, and that pulled him out, and they were able to get rebounds behind him. So, because Red Auerbach knew how to coach against Wilt. So that all being said, hey, listen, they won those games, they won those championships. He had all those rings, so I can appreciate all of that. That being said, I am not a fan of retiring a number for like. I understand the teams had to sign off on this. It becomes a matter of how do you not sign off on this because you feel that that it's insensitive if you choose not to. And I don't believe in that. You're forcing me now to take a stance on something that I didn't need to take a stance on before, but now I have to because you've decided to take a number out of circulation in my rotation. And already it's so now because his number is retired, is that less than the fact that Dr. J's number was number 6 and he's retired? The fact that LeBron James wears number 6 right now, and anybody who's wearing a number 6 can continue to wear number 6. But if you were wearing number 6 in college and this was the number that you were expecting to take in the pros, now all of a sudden you can't do that because this number is retired. And I
Well,
feel like
no.
that's
With Jackie Robinson's number 42 being retired by Major League Baseball, the players who were wearing it at the time, like Mariano Rivera, were allowed to keep wearing it until they retired. Okay, and I think it's up to an individual team to retire numbers, but I think it's gotten out of hand. Obviously, Jackie Robinson's number should be retired. With the Yankees, obviously, you want to retire. You should retire a handful of numbers, but the Yankees have gone overboard. They even retired Paul O'Neill's number this year. Paul O'Neill, a wonderful player, wonderful. Everyone in New York loves Paul O'Neill, but to retire his number, put him in the class of Ruth Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle.
Aren't the Yankees a little different in terms of where they retire numbers, but players still use them?
No, they don't. I'm going to tell you, Pax, I've always felt this way. If I was an iconic player myself, and a team wanted to retire my number, I would make a deal with them, a contractual deal. You can never retire you can never give my number to anyone else. I want my number to continue, but it's up to me to decide who wears it. Okay? I have to sign off on it. So let's say I was a Derek Jeter number 2, for example, and I said, I don't want my number retired. I like a player watching it on the field. Then, it's, I would make that decision. Okay? Who's going to wear it? And, like we just had a little thing, ironically, right before Bill Russell's retirement, Matthew Stafford's number 9 is being worn, by another Lion player, their draft choice. Their wide receiver, from Alabama, Williams there.
And I get it. And I understand why the Lions are doing that, specifically because obviously he won a Super Bowl with a different team that, there was a lot of cheering in Detroit for that Super Bowl. Probably more people in Detroit enjoyed that Super Bowl than people in LA. Because the tens of hundreds of people flooded the streets in LA and barely didn't get hit by a car. You know what I mean?
They were, which is a little unusual. You'd think they might have some resentment against Matthew Stafford. But
he was traded. He was traded. He wasn't, they would have more resentment towards the Lions themselves. I mean, it wasn't like he's a free agent and says, you know what, I got an offer from Detroit to stay here, or I could go take less money or more money over in, LA. He was traded. So, I mean, you can only be really angry with the Lions. You can't be angry with Matthew Stafford.
But I just want to wrap up the Bill Russell thing for now, at least. We admire Bill Russell tremendously. Great player. You can make an argument. I don't feel this way. He was the greatest NBA player of all time based on being so great defensively. I don't think so. I think that's stretching. Look, I saw Bill Russell play, and he wasn't a scorer. You've got to be a great defensive player and a great scorer to come under that category, best ever. But listen, he was a key part of the 11 championship teams, a very key part. He was the Tom Brady of the Boston Celtics. How about that? Okay. Maybe that's a good way of putting it, because he was the center, key guy. He had great players around him too, you could say. maybe I'm getting a little off of my example, but if you were going to retire his number once again, at least do it when he was alive. Let's hear his reaction to it, his joy to it. And I don't get it. All of a sudden, the NBA just woke up. Oh, he passed away. Why don't we retire number 6 for all time in honor of Bill Russell? I mean, give me a break. I mean, for them to just do it 1 week after he passes away, unless it comes out that Bill Russell knew about it, he agreed about it, but he didn't want it done after he passed away. And then I'd ask why. Okay, I wouldn't. Right. But in any event, I didn't get a good feel of the way it was handled, in that regard.
I agree with you. Like I said, I feel like that you are forcing teams to have to agree, because if you decided not to agree, if you were the one team that stood out, and I feel like that they had to present this to all the owners, and that the owners had to sign off on this. And if you decided that you were not going to sign off on this, that's insensitive to a whole group of people. And that you can't do that because, one, I mean, this is, there are definitely more people of color in the NBA than there are.
Well, let's get to the point. If someone didn't sign off on it, they're against it. They might be accused of being racist in a sense.
That's correct. And
we live in a very sensitive society, and no one wants to be perceived that way. So the easiest thing to do is to just go along with the thing like retiring Bill Russell's number, because it's low maintenance. It's not worth it to put up a big fight about, a big argument about. It's not quite important enough. So even if you disagree with it, it's just not worth going to battle for.
Yeah, and the one thing that I have with it is that I have to see a Celtics banner hanging up in the stadium. I don't want to see a Celtics banner hanging up in the stadium at all. But
the Celtics banner's hanging up when? In Philadelphia?
Well, it will be the moment that we have to put that banner up, because if you retire his number, that's what happens. You get a banner in the stadium. Our number 6 has already been retired. Julius Erving owns that number. Will never, that number would never get used anymore anyways. So the fact that they want to retire the number 6 is not a big deal.
I didn't know retiring the number and leaving it at that is one thing, but I didn't know there'd be banners in other stadiums.
Oh yeah, that every arena is going to have a shamrock with a number 6, and that's how it's going to show as being retired. And that's so, like, for instance, the number 42 was retired by the Phillies a long time ago, because there was, I think that was Pete Alexander.
Bill Russell had a wonderful sense of humor, and he had a unique way of laughing, wonderful. I enjoyed hearing him talk and laugh. I could hear that laugh now at the banner in the Philadelphia Stadium, for him, to honor him. He probably loved that.
Right. Well, and I imagine if it was the Spectrum. I mean, it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different world. They wouldn't have been able to do this in the 2000s. There's just no way that would have flown in Philadelphia. So, like I said, because we are a much more sensitive society, this gets spoon-fed to us. And like I said, I agree that there are probably just as many other people that would be considered just as worthy, maybe not have as many championship rings.
Well, Michael Jordan, right off the top of your head, what he meant to the NBA.
Jordan, yeah, actually, I feel like that Michael Jordan had too many off the court stuff that would start to come out.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's a social advocate and great player, probably better than Bill Russell.
Scored a lot more points than Bill Russell.
And
I mean, the championships, he didn't match him with championships.
I don't like maybe I went somewhere I shouldn't go, because I don't want to diminish Bill Russell, one of the all-time great players, and arguably on the greatest team of all time that went on a run, with the 8 championships in a row, 11 overall. And, kudos to Bill Russell. Anything they give him, it's hard to argue against. But my thing is, my biggest argument, do it while he's at least alive, so Bill Russell could enjoy it. Bill Russell could then comment on it. Bill Russell could then get interviewed about it. And then the other players could come up to Bill Russell, congratulate him on it, and then the other players could understand a little more how iconic Bill Russell truly was on and off the court, because they would see him at some NBA events. They'd go over to him. It would have meant more. That's my point about it. Okay.
Well, no, and I absolutely agree with you, because ultimately this society as a whole does that. That we choose not to honor the living. We only honor and so that's kind of what happened here. That you hear about, like, that he would have been able to continue this work and maybe push his work further because they retired his number and done more at in the golden years of his life to help promote that advocacy and things like that. Instead, they waited till after he was, after he's passed on, to really start to honor this. And really, now he doesn't get a chance to do that work anymore, where he could have and continued to do more good during that time while he was living. So
okay, Pax. There was a game last night. Speaking of that.
Exactly. Speaking of old school, there was the Field of Dreams game played between the Cubs and the Reds, and literally both these teams are not faring very well in Major League Baseball currently. And at the Field of Dreams, they only were able to seat, I think it's 7,800 people in total. And I think that's all that would have been at this game.
Let me ask you this, that I kind of wonder about your view on this. Major League Baseball had to schedule this game. You kind of knew, you never know for sure, of course, but the Cubs and the Reds were considered two of the weaker teams going in. They weren't considered, playoff threats per se. But especially to put the Chicago Cubs in this spotlight game, Chicago, shouldn't it have been another Chicago team? I don't quite get Major League Baseball scheduling reasoning. Shouldn't the White Sox be a part of this game every year?
I agree. That would be the most logical thing, saying that this movie, The Field of Dreams, is based more off of them than anything else. Obviously, once that word got out of this field that there were other teams that were represented other than the White Sox, and that's how they were able to field the teams for both. However, it was the White Sox that were prevalent in that, in that movie. So realistically, it's I kind of feel, instead of doing it the Field of Dreams, because they're not going to have this game next year because they're building a bigger stadium, which is even more ridiculous to me, because that wasn't the point of the movie either. The point of the movie is that there's always baseball, and that transcends between father and son, and that that the generations that pass, there's always there's the stories of the great ones. And I remember back when this happened and sharing it to the younger generations, and having baseball be something that transcends throughout time. That's the purpose of this movie in general. This game does not transcend throughout time.
Do you know how big a stadium they're planning on building? Do you know by any chance?
I think it's somewhere around 24,000.
Because I'm thinking to myself, Iowa has never had a Major League Baseball team. You wonder, can Iowa support a Major League Baseball team? Because for all we know, Major League Baseball is eyeing that possibility.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know what major city they're close enough to that would be worth that type of thing. And then, what is it going to be? Are you going to keep the cornfield? I mean, is it going to be?
Can they handle the traffic coming to the game?
That's
And
the other
those
thing. It's like the one thing that you don't notice when they show all those aerial views of everything is that you don't see any cars parked. You know, you put 20,000 people in that stands, all of a sudden you got to find really good parking, and that's not going to be able to be hidden. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, what are you going to have these guys park and then shuttle them back and forth to the field so that you don't have that parking is going to be like a mile away, and then you're going to have people running,
But
shuttling back and forth.
but Major League Baseball, the way they're doing it now, they're kind of losing the purity of the Field of Dreams game. I mean, it's not the same. I understand that when you do something every year, it doesn't quite have the same impact as before. But I feel what they should do is keep the White Sox as a staple of that game. That would be an ID card for the game, and then just let different teams come in. Okay, and there are ways you can go around it and let it be in that cornfield, not building a new stadium.
I agree. I agree. And they're actually, it's going to remain in the cornfield. They're just building bigger bleachers and such. So,
But why? But the beauty of the game, make it a TV game. People show up. Very limited seating, like in the movie.
Well,
I
I
mean,
agree. I agree. And so this is where Major League Baseball, this is where the copycat comes in. So obviously that Major League Baseball took a look at what the NHL is doing with the Stadium Series and how the Stadium Series went a step further this year, and they actually played on a golf course in Tahoe. And I was a little warm that that when that happened. Obviously, it was the Flyers versus the Bruins, and that happened during the COVID year. And they didn't do it again because they weren't able to get fans and stuff like that to the game. So it wound up being okay that happened. Of course, was able to have that game and then get everybody out. But ultimately, the Stadium Series, what makes the Stadium Series so unique is that they're playing in different stadiums. They don't do it in the same stadium over and over and over again. You don't want it in the same spot because then it gets stale. And if Major League Baseball wanted to do something that was kind of unique, pull out the different stadiums from these movies, like recreate the stadium from The Natural. Let's do it. Kind of recreate the stadium from Brewster's Millions. You know what I mean?
Well,
from
they
from
not
Bull
they knocked
Durham.
a lot of the stadiums down. I would love if those stadiums were up like Forbes Field, the old-fashioned stadiums that we used to have, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, to play there. But those stadiums have been taken down. You imagine recreating Ebbets Field. Yeah. I mean, those were classics, older stadiums. And, when they build a new stadium, a lot of times I wish they wouldn't tear down the old stadium and you'd play a limited amount of games. I know I talk about sometimes the Brooklyn Dodgers having moved to Los Angeles, but before that, they were offered the chance to relocate to Queens, to Shea. Basically, they would have played at Shea Stadium, where the Mets played, but Walt O'Malley, the Dodge owner, said, how could we be called the Brooklyn Dodgers if we're playing in Queens? My answer would have been keep Ebbets Field up, play about a dozen games there a year, so you could kind of keep your name. But, they say, well, they couldn't be called the Brooklyn Dodgers. If the Yankees left the Bronx for Manhattan, could they be called the Bronx Bombers? I know that's a good point, but then I could say this: the Jets and the Giants are playing in New Jersey, but they're called in New York. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares what you're called, as long as the fans know you're their team or whatever. Let me throw this at you, Pags. You're the Philly guy. Let's say all the Philly teams got these brand new stadiums, arenas in Delaware, and they all played in Delaware. Would they be called, you consider them yours, the Philly, whatever, still in Delaware, because it's in the neighboring town, basically.
Right.
That's what I think.
You know, so and this happens very right now with the Philadelphia Union. We play in Chester, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, and Byron, we got Byron Williams coming in here. I want to be able to ask him specifically, and you're on mute right now, Byron, just so that you know that with everything that happened, obviously hockey does the Stadium Series. Baseball now has this Field of Dreams. Do you think the NFL could do? Do you think the NFL even has any interest in trying to do some of these specialty games, short of going overseas?
Yeah, I think they probably might try to look at an option. Maybe with all that we have already in place with the Hall of Fame game, and then us going to Germany this year to play games. That's going to be something that probably the league will look at. But in general, I think that it's going to take some years to see how they're going to operate with all the football that's going on with college and high school over here in the States. It's going to be real busy. Now you got the USFL and other things that's going on. So those are some of the things that's happening.
Got ya. Yeah, I like I said, I kind of feel like that football doesn't need to do some of the, you know, edgy things that you don't need to create a new stadium. There isn't really. I mean, there's some iconic movies that you know football has a really good show and a good light in, but for the most part, I don't really think that you need to do anything gimmicky. Like I said,
Let me
maybe
ask
just going
Byron,
overseas.
how does it affect the way a player plays according to the stadium? I'm not talking about the turf and all those elements. Just you go out and you see the beauty of the stadium or a beat down stadium. How does it psych a player out at all, when he first comes out there and takes a look?
Yeah, my phone was buffering, but I didn't hear the first beginning of that.
Right, the type of stadium you play in, how does that affect a player mentally, as far as his performance? I'm not talking about the turf and the field conditions. I'm talking about you come out there and you look at the stands, how big it is and everything. Is it a difference?
Playing in like iconic stadiums like Soldier Field, does that play into some of the does the mystique of the field play into some of the mindset of the player?
I think sometimes, I think also it depends on the maturity of the player. I think when you play in these iconic stadiums, I think you want to have a good memory of playing on that football field. Like we played in the Soldier Field, in the cold. So when you play in some of those games that mean a lot, I think it's up to the players. But in the mindset of a football player, I think you got to look at it as a practice field that you want to have a great performance on. And then if you have good footage, go back and look at some of the game footage. Then if you can make history on those fields, that's really good and everlasting. But typically a football player should have in mind that this is like a practice field. You can't get involved with the fans and the stands and things like that. You got to block a lot of stuff out, but you got to stay focused on your task at hand. And so that's kind of the way I see it. I don't. Players tend to be different now. So
Byron. So when you played for the Giants and you had a case of the drops, and Pags is in the stands riding you hard, laughing at you after you dropped the ball, you mean to tell me you don't hear him at all? You could shut him out?
You still hear some of that. You still hear some of that going on, but it just depends on how mature-minded you are. It upset a lot of people, but when it get personal, that's another thing. But if you just being a fan and rooting for the Eagles, so to speak, or whatever, or the Cowgirls, then you it can be personable. But if it ain't personable, then you don't let it affect you in your game because it will get you off your focus, and you need to be centered focused on the task at hand. So yeah, I mean, it also depends on the maturity of the player as well.
Well, and I have to imagine that, like for instance, the vet itself, playing in Veterans Stadium, and I'm using that as the reference here, but that the vet itself, going to play there, and that it was the concrete jungle, and the turf sucked and what have you. And that the facilities themselves weren't the best in the grand scheme. That all of that would play more of a part. That you were trying to get out of there as quickly as possible, and make sure that you could still walk out of there, because you didn't know what was going to happen, if the turf was going to grab you and tear up your knee, or you were all the skin rashes that you would get from sliding on that fake grass is really all it was. It wasn't even real turf for the most part. I have to imagine that played more into the mindsets of these players than.
Well,
I think so, because a lot of times you hear the veterans, people that's been playing on the team that played in the stadium 5 or 6 times, 8 times. They got these stories as well, and sometimes you don't get good experiences playing on certain fields, and then of course the element with the fans. So yeah, you're exactly right. You got all this going into the equation, but yet if you lose, it really adds a lot more salt on the wound when you leave that place. But when you approach playing in these games, you want to have a good memory, and you want to have a lasting effect that you can always tell your family and your friends, and then you can go back and say, oh yeah, I remember I had my best game at the vet, blah blah blah. But yet, if you had some miserable games, like your ribs got busted and things like that, that's a whole different set of statements.
Byron,
Yeah. What?
the Giants win at the buzzer yesterday. Field goal as time expires. They beat New England. It always seems like the Giants have New England's number. I don't know why. But let's be honest, it was a meaningless game, at least to me. To you, I get a feeling it means something. Oh, the Giants on the right track, this or that. But what did you take out of the game?
Well, first of all, Bill Parcells believe in winning all your games. You play the games to win, right? So, I think that can give the Giants a little momentum going into this week of practice, as well as knowing that, you went there and you won the game, and now you build off of positivity versus losing the game and not winning. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about winning games. And so whether it's preseason or not, and even though they don't count, but it will give your team a lot of momentum in practice, riding back, a flight back to New York, New Jersey. So it's always a good thing to win these games. But I think a lot of time, Belichick is doing a lot of things that he needs to test out, offense coordinator and game calling, game situation.
Was he platooning offensive coordinators, like hitting from the left and right side of the plate? Like they're having, I never saw anything like this before, an offensive coordinator competition. That's a first. They're like battling it out to see who'll start. Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, two coaches who are coming off miserable jobs they did with their teams. Patricia with the Lions and Judge with the Giants.
Yep.
And what are they supposed to do? Impress Belichick, who could, do better at play calling? I'm confused by this whole thing.
Yeah, it looked really crazy for them to set that up like that, and then the TV cameras getting on them while they calling plays and mixing things up. So it's interesting, but I know Belichick got a plan of action. So I believe me, he just looking at some things right now, but he already know what he really want to do. I mean, believe me, Bill Belichick been around, and he knows exactly what he want to do.
Is this a crutch? And I look at this as possible that he's using this as a crutch. That Mac Jones has not looked really good this preseason. Looks like he's regressed from last year.
And game.
Well, no. I mean, just in practice in general.
I heard he came in top shape. The camp.
That he may have become in top shape, but he has not been performing well. That's the word that's coming from camp, that he is regressed from last year, and that Belichick may see that this may be one of the years that the whole team in total doesn't do very well, and that he could be using this as the crutch to say, okay, well, we're going to start with this guy, and then if he doesn't work, we're going to then be able to go to this guy, because he wants to be able to try to change as much as he can, so that it's changing a momentum, that if they, by chance, they start off poorly, that maybe changing the guy who calls the plays, even mentally, may change the momentum of the player and have them go and play better.
Yeah, and that's what preseason is all for. And Jack always talking about you might as well not play preseason game. Well, preseason game is for what we just talking about now. You want to get the king side, you want to try some things, and then down and distance and situational football is very important. So this is why you use preseason game, and that's to get the timing down and everything else. So that's what's important. You got to try all these different case scenarios to make sure that you can, when they come up during the regular season, that you know what you need to do and how to make these adjustments. So that's why I love preseason game. You get the kinks out, you try things, and you be creative on how you approach the game of football.
To me, not for the. I agree with you, Byron, but not for the established players. I mean, the quarterback position, you got to look. They drafted someone, I forgot his name, out in the 4th round, who's not going to be starting. Then they got Brian Hoyer, who they played yesterday. And if you got to start Brian Hoyer, I mean, you're going to have problems. Not that he's not competent, that he can't fill in, but if you're going forward with him, I mean, Mac Jones has got to be your guy. You've got to live with Mac Jones. He proved he could do the job last year. And he does have upside, maybe not to be a great quarterback in the league, but to be a solid quarterback. So I can't see drifting away from Mac Jones. I mean, that would be a major setback for the team.
But recall, we're always talking about your second string quarterback got to be ready just in case of injuries and things happen in the season. So I think that's probably what they're doing. They're getting the second string quarterback prepared to come in and take control of the offense and do some things that they need to get done and accomplish. But it's proven that you got to have two good quarterbacks on the roster. So that's the key.
Well, you had yesterday. Speaking of that, the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel puts in, Malik Willis. Even though Malik Willis slipped all the way down to the 3rd round, he's heavily touted. People are eyeing him as if he was a high 1st round pick, and in reality, he was a 3rd round pick. If you're a blue chip prospect, you don't slip to the 3rd round the way Malik Willis did, and all the teams wouldn't have let him slip that far. But it seemed that Mike Vrabel, to me at least, benched Malik Willis because he said after, well, I wish he'd thrown the ball more, but he did okay. When a head coach says a player did okay, that means he didn't do okay, because they're not going to say he didn't do okay. That's about as low as it gets. And he got mad at Malik Willis, the guy with this rifle arm, for not throwing the ball and wanting to use his legs. So it just seemed he wasn't overly thrilled with Malik Willis yesterday. That's my perception.
Yeah, he wasn't thrilled with him, but I think he saw something, and Malik needs to get used to the speed of the game up there in the NFL and all that. But I just think too, it's a process. You got to get these players involved, engaged, and the biggest adjustment that you have to make in the National Football League is learning the speed of the game, taking control, and being, making good decision makers out there on the football field. So those are some of the things that happened last night that they probably need to see more of. But Tom Brady was a 6th round draft choice too. So sometimes you drop.
I don't want to hear about these aberrations. I'm sick of hearing about it. So I hear all the time, the 6th round draft choice is so important. You can get your starters in the 6th round. You rarely do. Look, I could point the guy's rich. He won the lottery. So take a part of your salary each week and go and buy a bunch of lottery tickets, because I know someone who won it 20 years ago.
This is what I want to say. It's not about, being drafted in the 1st round, 2nd round. It's about, like, once you get on the team, it's how you get in position to make good plays and become the star that you need to establish yourself in the National Football League. So this is what I'm telling you. I'm not saying just because he dropped from 1st round to 3rd round, it doesn't mean anything. Now he's on the team. He's established. Yeah. He knows what the protocol is going to be like. Now he can take the ball and run with it like he did last night. But anyway, I just think those are the things that you want to. You want to see what team you're going to be on from college, and then that way you can take it and go from there.
I think the difference is this between the 1st and 3rd round. You draft a play in the 1st round, you expect to start him, maybe not immediately, okay, especially a quarterback. And if you draft a
Yeah,
play in
we'll
the third round,
Give it,
you
dog.
you hope to start him.
Hey, I want you to say hello to these. Hey, this is Donald Driver. Hey, Jack.
Who's that?
Hey,
Oh,
Donald, how are you? It's good to
hey,
have
Donald.
you.
Yeah, you got to
New England,
straighten Byron out, Donald, on some football here. You got to straighten Byron out on some football. We've got, what's worse? Okay, Byron and myself got into a debate with Jeff Coke. Let's say someone committed a crime, they have to get a punishment. What's worse, making them run over the middle and getting hit by an NFL linebacker like a Ray Lewis, or to be caught on the bottom of a pile for about 30 seconds where everyone is trying to get the ball, twisting your fingers, poking you in the eye? What's worse?
Going across the middle.
There you have it. There you have it.
I'm happy. That's what I agree.
Hey, if you're a
Jeff
receiver
Coke
running
says
across
the
the middle,
pile.
will make or break you. Running across the middle. I'm telling you. You heard it from Donald Driver. You heard it from me. So what else do you need, Jack? You're a boxing writer. You need to understand. You got to listen to us.
I know, getting knocked out. I know it's worse. You experienced it, Byron. You know firsthand.
Getting cut across the middle, that sometimes will affect the rest of your career. Sometimes
Absolutely right.
I know it helped us.
We're going to go tee off, and I want to get on and say, tell you guys hello. And I really missed y'all last week, but man, you guys, it's in the atmosphere. Football is kicked off now. We got these preseason, got some games tonight, games tomorrow, games Sunday. So, Jack, you ought to be dreaming about football.
I am. I just am curious, Byron. You have time to let us know who you're picking to win the Super Bowl. Last year, you were bragging most of the year about you picked the Arizona Cardinals most of the year. And then at the end, obviously, they got a flat tire. But they signed your guy, Kyler Murray, to this long-term deal. And Kyler, we trust. I don't know about that.
Absolutely.
I just don't know about that.
Jack, it's going to be the strength of your schedule. It's how you go into the playoff run. But I'm still going to pick the Arizona Cardinals again to make a deep run going into the playoff. And but it's a whole new dynamic out west with all these changes and all these free agents signing. But, it's going to be interesting. I'm doing my homework right now just to make sure and see who I'm going to predict to be what I thought Arizona was going to do last year. And I was off at the end of the season. But this year I'm going to take that in consideration.
I'm excited. There's so many good teams, but obviously there are few teams that we know aren't going to do well, like the Chicago Bears. Like, that's the easy pick in that division between the Vikings and the Packers, expected to battle for the division title. The Lions expected to improve, but the Bears, it would be a shock if the Bears, came up with a, winning record anywhere close to it.
It's going to take the Bears at least 2 more years to kind of build what they need to build, to get in place like some of these other teams are right now. So, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
Well, Byron, we appreciate you stopping on. I know that they're rushing you to try to get out on the tee box. So hit them straight today. Hopefully, are you guys doing a scramble, or is it just normal play?
It's a 4-man scramble. Yeah.
There you go. So it was on your team today.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, I'll see y'all next week.
Okay, great seeing you, Byron.
Okay.
All right, have a good one, Byron.
Bye-bye.
There we go. And Byron, so Byron, I'm from the golf course. So that man who's, it's nice to live that type of life. So
got Donald Driver on the show, we could say.
There we go. We got to pull it out.
Basically a cameo.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And he didn't want to put him on there for too long because he didn't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose his spot. He doesn't want Donald to be taking over his spot.
I don't think it. No, I don't think it's bad. I think he maybe didn't want Donald Driver to see Byron, who he associates with you and I. The more Donald would talk to us, the more he figured, Byron, why do a show with guys like that? Because Donald left pretty quickly. Noticed. After he got my question, he wondered. He's probably never gotten a question like that before on any sports show.
Exactly. But he answered it quick. It wasn't even a thought. But he's like, going across the middle.
Yeah, you got Ray Lewis waiting for you, Pax. You're cutting the middle, and he's gonna flatten you. I'd rather be on the bottom
Ray
of the
Lewis.
pile.
It doesn't be Ray Lewis. You think back at Super Bowl 52, one of the bigger plays in that game was very early on when uh oh my Lord, now the name really escapes me there. Because Dawkins, Jenkins hit the Patriot receiver. I want to say it was Woods, but I don't think it was.
Jenkins.
Yeah, Malcolm Jenkins in that game and knocked him out of the game. It's just because he said he turned, he wasn't paying attention, bam, got hit, and he didn't come back the rest of that game. I guess went through concussion protocol and all those other things. But that was a very big play in the game early, who took out one of their top receivers, and they weren't. I mean, let's face it, Brady still threw for 500 yards that game. But every time Brady throws for 500 yards, most of the time he loses those games. So
Brady
played
played a good game against the Eagles. He played a very good game.
He did.
Yeah.
But also
Philly earned the win. They earned that Super Bowl win.
I absolutely agree. So why don't we do a little bit early? We'll go take our commercial break now. And once we come back, we'll have Keith Engel on from TGI Sports to talk about what his thoughts were of some of the things that happened yesterday in sports with the 21-game preseason winning streak of the Baltimore Ravens, and also the Field of Dreams game, which he also had an opinion about. So we'll be right back after these commercial messages. Stand by. And there we go.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that? Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help? I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it! I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy? He missed the tag! He missed the tag!
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, isn't he?
And we are back for the Mac and Jack show, second half of our show. Hey, real quick, because I've asked everybody else, maybe since you're also a New York guy, as we're watching that promo at the very end, we have Sal Angeletti saying something very specific. He goes, "Oh, I'm from Brooklyn," and he goes, "Hey, is it each or whatever it is?" Do you understand what he's saying?
Well, he says, he says, "I'm from Brooklyn." Another guy goes, "Hey, that's all."
From Brooklyn. And then he says something. He says a word. Is it each or whatever? I don't know what that word means.
I don't listen, Pags. No offense to even guys like you. I don't pay attention to a lot of the fans' nonsense. Whenever there's a big game, where do the news crews go? They go to the bars and places like that to see the fans acting, I'm going to use a kind word, hyper. How's that? Okay, I could use another word, but hyper. They're going, hey. Why can't they talk to the fans in an intelligent way? The fans answer in an intelligent way. They're demeaning the fans. This, like we talked about stereotypes early in the show. They're stereotyping the fans as not being knowledgeable. So then the fans are buying into that. Why the heck do we have to see fans acting like they're crazy and off the wall? And you could certainly defend or relate to that more than anyone. I mean, because you're around it all the time. But enough of it. That's all we see. Their news crews head to the closest bar. Why?
I mean, because there's things to be done with people that are drunk.
Oh, what?
I mean, that's people that are drunk. There's content there. And that's what creates news. If they don't know what they're going to run into. People ask me all the time, why do I get painted up? Do I do it for the attention? And the truth of the matter is that I don't get painted up for the attention. I don't need to pander to a camera. The camera finds me because I happen to be a little bit more decorated and I happen to be very loud. So I'm going to be who I am anyways. And because of that, the camera finds me more frequently than most. And most of the time I try to get myself, I position myself so that I can help somebody else get on camera. It has nothing to do with me. It's not about me. It's about representing the fan base. And that's what I will try to do as best as possible. But that doesn't mean that you have to show me all the time. So at the draft, when, you show me once, okay. You show me twice, okay. Every pick you're going directly to me. I don't know that that's really fair to the other fans that are around. So I try to remove myself from that situation. I try to go towards the back so that they have to find me. And if they eventually do, the camera always is going to find me because I stand out in the crowd. But ultimately, by doing that, they have to go wider berth so they're getting more people on the camera. Because it's not about me, nothing to do with that. It has more to do with, when I'm as the Philly sports guy, it allows me, being painted up, allows me to have a bigger microphone. well, that bigger microphone gets heard. So that's how I feel about stuff like that.
No, there's a difference between having fun all the time. And I'm not even talking about the fans. The onus isn't on the fans. I'm talking about the media and the cameras. I mean, that's where they want the fans to be super loud, super boisterous, be yelling, not even saying anything, just yelling and acting crazy. That's what they want. That's the image there. I mean, why not just sometimes go into a bar where fans, aren't that loud? They're just enjoying themselves, clapping, having a good time, okay? But they always want to capture things as if the clock hit it's New Year's Eve and the clock hits midnight. They want to catch that exact mood. And that mood should be saved for the time the team wins the game. Then I want to see them go crazy at that moment, not just waiting for the game and all. And listen, some of it is great. I enjoy it. But we get it all the time. I mean, nothing else but. That's my thing.
Well, and I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to create an in-game experience, not at the game. That's why they go to bars. That's why, because also alcohol inducing, these people all together and cheering on a football team, a baseball team, whatever it is that they're about to watch. It creates a frenzy because you do have somebody who's going to be louder than everybody else. I mean, during football season, you could be just about anywhere and do Eagles chants. And all you have to do is have the one person that just starts with the long E, and everybody else is going to include into the mix. And that's so, I mean, I know
it's enjoyable at times. Listen, I went to a Long Island Duck game, and they had this player, Lou Ford, 47 years old on the Long Island Ducks. He's a player coach. He can still hit. He was a former major leaguer close to 20 years ago. Every time he got up, I found myself a grown man going, Lou, 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 Lou. And some people are looking at me. And I'm sitting there and I'm like laughing, having a good time. And then I realized my seat was right in front of the broadcast booth. So they're looking down, these broadcasters, at this older guy, acting like a complete fool, going, Lou, Lou, Lou. And if they only knew what I did on the side, little did they know, like, my background or who I was. They just figure some fan is coming, going, Lou, but I'm having fun. At the time.
and that's all that matters. I mean, you're supposed to have fun at these games. It's supposed to be you buy these tickets so that you could cheer and go on.
By the way, Lou got 3 hits, including a home run in that game. By the way, Lou Ford,
Lou Ford. I don't remember Lou Ford at all.
47-year-old who could still hit. Someone should pick the guy up, former major leaguer. He's still got it. He could still swing the bat, I'm telling you.
Well, the Yankees might need him since the fill-in for the Joey Gallo, hole that needs to get filled.
All I heard was Jack talking about some older guy acting like a loon or something. All of a sudden, I see his face on the screen.
That was it. That's exactly it. No, but I'm sitting, Keith, right. I didn't notice at the time, and then I get up, and I notice I'm sitting in the last row by the ledge, but right behind me is the broadcasters for the game. I don't know how much an audience the Long Island Ducks have, but nevertheless, the broadcasters are looking at this guy and they probably thought I was intoxicated.
I wasn't. Isn't this the Independent Baseball League team?
Yeah.
Didn't Sparky Lyle manage it?
Wally Backman is the manager of the Long Island Ducks, actually, and Lee Mazzilli's son plays for the Long Island Ducks. And you have a number of former major leaguers who play in those leagues. I mean, maybe they didn't have a long career. They came up for part of one season. A guy's trying to hang on. I mean, you get some good quality, baseball and, in the minor leagues. People don't realize it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, which is a great segue to what we felt like we wanted to talk to you about. Was there great baseball played in Iowa yesterday? And what are some of your thoughts? I know we talked about this a little bit on Started Up this morning, but I know that you feel that it already may have jumped the shark here.
Yeah, I feel it has jumped the shark. I mean, first of all, when I saw the matchup months ago that it was going to be the Cubs and Reds, I was like, why? Not because of whether they were going to be good or bad, but how do you play this game and the White Sox aren't part of it? White Sox have to be part of this game every single year, and if they aren't, there's no sense of playing it in my mind. They're talking, as we talked about this morning, about building a new stadium. Well, you build a new stadium, you're going to lose some of that charm of why they're there in the first place. I don't care if there's 7,500 people in the stands. Who cares? It's not about that. The talking to the players on the field during the game, it's all tricked up. Harry Carey having a hologram of him singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Last year's game had a great feel, and I enjoyed every second of that game last year. There were still some good parts of this game last night. I told Pags earlier, the Griffey's getting out there to be able to play catch on the field, the father and the dad, kind of emulating, the movie and the climax of the movie. The players coming out through the corn is still kind of cool. But it's already because, and again, this has got Rob Manfred and his marketing people's fingers all over it. They got to try to attract more casual fans. So what can we do? We can talk to the players while the game's going on. We can have holograms of Harry Carey. You could have played a video; it would have had the same effect. And I feel the game is starting to jump the shark in the second year, and it's a shame because it could have been a great yearly event with the White Sox, and don't trick it up. I guess that's all I got to say. And it's
so short of, so it would be something that the White Sox always do, and that what they would have one. Is that how that should go?
I would rotate teams to come in. It doesn't matter who they play. I don't care that they play the Yankees. I don't care if they play the Cardinals or the Cubs. But it needs to be the White Sox. That's to me. What's the point? Don't.
What year hypothetically was Field of Dreams supposed to have been taking place in?
Oh, it was
when
in.
Ray Kinsella,
Time in the 80s.
In the night. Yeah, no, I know when it came out, but that's when around he was going to look in. Because I was going to ask I kind of wonder what year started "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," the song. I don't know the answer to that.
It's a ways back, but again, the movie took place, in the 80s, right, in real time. But when the whole "Build It and He Will Come" thing, right, and the Cubs coming, that was like the 1919-ish Cubs that were they were the ones coming.
Let me get something straight, Keith. I mean, help me out with this one.
Cubs. I said White Sox. Sorry, I said Cubs.
White Sox. I haven't heard anyone mention this before. Pete Rose is banned from baseball for betting on baseball, yet they're glorifying the Chicago White Sox with this game, who more than one guy bet on baseball. Most of their starting team did. I don't see the consistency here. Think about it, right? They're glorifying Field of Dreams, and that was based, a team that some of the guys gambled. We don't know whether Shoeless Joe Jackson did the key character. I'm not passing judgment there, but
he had a great series that year, and
reportedly, when guys went on base when it wasn't as important. So maybe the stats were a little misleading, maybe.
I read the book, I watched the movie, and there was something going on, definitely. And there were players that were taking money. There were players that weren't. And there was a lot of strife within the two teams. And Shoeless Joe Jackson's had a lifetime ban just like Pete Rose has. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He's not allowed on fields, but he's dead, so it doesn't matter. But he was a great player, and he should be. Look at me when it comes to yes, you should be banned, but do you just forget about what they contributed to the sport? No,
No, Keith, you're missing my point on here. I'm asking, do you think it's ironic that Major League Baseball is making a big deal about Field of Dreams, but if you look closely at Field of Dreams, those guys did something dishonest, a number of them.
They did.
And it's being that team, the White Sox, would be glorified. I mean,
it was more. I don't know that it was in 1919. I said ish. So Joe Jackson was a key character from the White Sox of that team.
Yeah.
You make that leap, but this movie was really about fathers and sons and Cosner's character getting to see his dad on the field. That was what it was all about. And Earl and James Earl Jones, I think we talked about this. I think Jamie and I might have talked about it, or I talked about it with somebody. That little speech he gives about baseball still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up every time I hear it. Now, what's really ironic is that we continue to ban Joe Jackson and Pete Rose, but baseball's knee deep or shoulder deep in sports gambling, like all sports are now. That's more ironic to me than anything else. When it comes to Pete Rose. Did Pete Rose did something wrong? Pete Rose absolutely did something wrong. It says up there in every clubhouse, you can't bet on baseball games. So did he do something wrong? Yes. His argument that he never bet against the Reds doesn't hold up because in my mind, every time you didn't bet on the Reds, you bet against the Reds. And people know that. And so you might as well have bet in the games. But at the same time, now you're encouraging, a whole new generation of fans to become gambling degenerates, possibly, because every single ad, half the newspaper articles I see in the New York Post are about betting a game that night, whether it be.
But I think we all agree the Pete Rose ban should be lifted, and this isn't about the type of person Pete Rose is. If you want to tell me he's a despicable human being, I'm not saying he is, but I'm not going to argue on behalf of Pete Rose. I mean, he has issues for sure.
I put him
okay. But this ban is, come on, give me a break. I mean, it's the legal system wouldn't have put him in jail for this long for a crime that he committed. Yeah,
we talked about this a lot too. Put him in the Hall of Fame, and you put everything in there, warts and all. Pete Rose, you leave him banned for baseball for gambling, but he was the all-time hits leader as well. By the way, let me mention that. Right? I mean, you can't just discount everything these guys gave to the game because they made some mistakes, serious mistakes. And if we're going to kick all the bad people out of Hall of Fame, well, then, Ty Cobb was a horrendous human being. There's a lot of guys out there. O.J. Simpson's still in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Well, they point out with Pete Rose, what you pointed out, Keith, the sign that says about not gambling in the clubhouse. Does the sign say lifetime ban?
I do not know if it says that specifically.
Right. I mean, but even then, it's like, come on. I mean, is that the worst thing anyone's ever done? I'm going to tell you something that's worse than that, okay? Worse than Pete Rose betting on a game. A pitcher deliberately throwing 100-mile fastball towards a batter's head.
Yeah.
That should get a guy banned longer than betting on a baseball game, okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that's attempted murder, I guess, or assault.
Steroid use, how it affected the game. I mean, it just, we've been down this road before.
Yeah, it's a quagmire once you dive into it, but put them all in, warts and all. It's a Hall of Fame. They contributed to the game. And
I could play devil's advocate, not about Pete Rose, guys. I just mentioned the steroids, for example. I could say, playing devil's advocate, well, the guys who use steroids deprived someone else of stats or roster spots who didn't use steroids because they had an advantage. So why are we rewarding them?
Good point. Problem is, you don't know if you're going to ban one, you don't know who you know the big names that used it. You know the names that came out in the Mitchell report. So you know some of the people, but there's no way to know everybody that did or didn't use it. So if you're going to ban one person, you got to ban them all from that era, or don't ban anybody.
Let me tell you what I want to see. I want to see one player come out and say, I knowingly used steroids because I felt it would give me an edge. It would help me perform better. It would help my team win. It would help me get a better contract. I would respect that guy so much. As opposed to I unknowingly used it. I had no idea what they were giving me.
Before he died, Ken Caminiti did come out and say he used steroids, and he did it to improve his performance. He was very, very open about it. I think Canseco might have been open about it as well. I'm not sure, but I think he was. But Ken Caminiti jumps right to my mind. He admitted he did it.
Yeah, and he was one of the better third basemen. I mean, I almost like arguably the second behind Mike Schmidt.
I would say
well, let's not get carried away over here. You're talking about George Brett, Wade Boggs. Let's not get carried away.
For a couple of years while on steroids, Ken Caminiti had as good a years as any of those guys ever had, really. But
right, and that's why it's arguably not necessarily definitely.
George Brett, 390 hitter 1 year, so.
Great. Overall, no, they don't. No, overall, Ken Caminiti doesn't touch Schmidt or Brett. That's
yeah.
And how do we know? And how do we know that they weren't taking steroids back then when it wasn't as prevalent?
Well, they're taking greenies. They're all taking greenies. We know that. That's well documented, right? So that's
it's all performance enhancing. So it's literally it was just anything that would give you that little bit of extra edge. If you're not cheating a little, you're cheating a lot. And that's just the real of it, and that's why Houston thing was such a big deal, because it changed, it defined what cheating a lot could really consist of.
Right. That is a great segue for Keith to talk about the Patriots, because LaDainian Tomlinson would say about Bill Belichick's motto: if he says if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, basically.
Or maybe about the Patriot way, I should say, not Belichick directly, even though it's obviously Belichick's fingerprints on.
He didn't say it directly. No, that would have been
no, not directly. No,
but it certainly is applied to the Patriot way, and a lot of people have said it, and I've said for years, the Patriots have done nothing, whether it was taping walkthroughs, whether it was taping signals, whether it was whatever. Same thing with the Astros, by the way, that every other team isn't doing, and some teams are doing it more or better or worse. I mean, the Patriots are doing it really well, and then they got caught. So, they're the poster child for it. But don't tell me other people aren't doing it. Tom Brady lets the air out of the football, and it's a big story. Every quarterback in the league almost admitted to the fact that they manipulated footballs, right? Aaron Rodgers said he wanted more air in the football than they're supposed to be. Eli Manning said he used to manipulate the balls. All of these things that these teams get caught for when it comes to if you're not cheating, if you're not trying, they're all doing it. And some are doing it, taking it to different levels, as Pag said, like the Astros did.
The one big thing that I remember more than anything else is after they hit that game-winning home run, and he said, "Don't take off my shirt, don't rip on my shirt because I've got it right here." He's saying it as he's going. He's like, no.
Altuve, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, literally that was...
We'll continue to say to Brian Cashman and all the Yankee fans, and I'm one of the Yankee fans, they didn't lose that World Series because of sign stealing. They won because they lost, I should say, because they didn't hit the Astros pitching, which had nothing to do with sign stealing. Nothing.
You still have to hit the ball at the end of the day.
Runs, I don't care. If the Astros stole one run, the Yankees weren't going to win because they didn't score hardly any runs in that series. They couldn't hit the pitching.
Which brings me to something that I recall now, the reading from a couple days ago, that some pitchers and catchers have instituted the electronic signs.
Yep.
So, and that Scherzer said, it should be banned. That should be banned. That stealing signs is actually part of the game. Now, he also, he kind of said, you can't go as crazy as the Astros did, but part of stealing signs is being able to tip from second base to your batter what's possibly coming. And you have to make sure to get the signs right.
I agree with him. I think it's part of the game. I'm sure, Jack, you remember this. Ralph Branca went to his grave swearing that the Giants stole the signs when Thompson hit the home run in 1954.
Thompson admitted early in the year he did steal signs, and he said he wasn't proud of it. But when we talk about stealing signs, you know, the only one when a pitcher pitches, the only one it affects is the catcher, because the catcher kind of has to know what's doing. I would love to have a big league catcher on this moment and ask, can a catcher make an adjustment, always expect a fastball, but be able to adjust to another pitch?
That's
Because
hard.
that's what you're catering to as a pitcher, the catcher. Because if he's expecting a breaking ball and you throw him a fastball, I mean, can he adjust quickly?
No,
I mean, that's all there is to it. Otherwise, the pitcher never has to let the catcher know. The pitcher could decide what he's pitching. When you think of it, catchers are the equivalent of offensive coordinators in football. When you think of it, they're calling the game. For pitcher, but a guy like Matt Scherzer, he could call his own darn game. What does he need a catcher to tell him what pitches to do? The pitcher has the best feel what pitches he's going to throw. If it's a rookie pitcher, you got an established catcher. Yeah, you want to rely on him to get you through.
Yeah.
But that's the only question. You know, can the catcher handle the pitch coming his way if he doesn't know what's coming, you know, beforehand?
He cannot. He cannot. If he's expecting a curveball low and away and he gets a high fastball, the umpire is going to go to the hospital probably. So
Right. You know,
That's-
and I
yeah,
and like
well,
and I even believe like you had Roy Halladay that still like needed Chooch, you know, Carlos Ruiz to call those games, and he like really trusted Chooch to be able to do that. It's like Chooch was trusted by a lot of Darren Dalton, a great catcher. It had nothing to do with his hitting. He was like a career 220 hitter, but he was able to call the game and be captain on the field because he was able to tell those pitchers what you're pitching. This is what you need to pitch. I've done the research on this guy. I mean, each hitter is a little different. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to kind of see. And obviously, these pitchers now, I mean, they do watch the film. They do know where everybody's strike, the red part and the blue parts on their strike zones are in each quadrant. And they can do that, but it's hard to remember for everybody. The outfielders bring little cards out on the field to make sure that they stand in the right spot when the right person's up at bat. So the pitcher can't do that. The pitcher can't say, oh, this guy likes this, so I'm going to call this play here. You know what I mean? He doesn't get the opportunity to do that. So that's got to be somewhat reliant on the catcher.
I will say that I'll bet you some, like Scherzer you brought up as an example, he very well might be calling his own game anyway, because if you're shaking the catcher off, then you're making the call of what the pitch is, right? So some guys, I think, probably call mostly their own game anyway, and Scherzer might be one of them. Some great pitchers like Halladay might need some help for sure. So,
right, in Sparky Lyle's book, The Bronx Zoo, I think he referred to when he was a rookie on the Red Sox. Elston Howard had gotten traded from the Yankees to the Red Sox. He was the catcher. And Sparky Lyle shook Elston Howard off, and Collier Stremski gave Sparky Lyle an earful.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are shaking off, this established, great catcher who's been around forever, and you're a rookie and you're shaking him off?
I remember that story. That's a great book, by the way. I love that. I got to reread that book. That's a great book.
I have never read that book, so I don't know.
But George Thornton was a pioneer, guys. He's the guy who started with the walkie-talkies and positioning outfielders, and people don't give him credit for it.
They got fined for some of that stuff too, back in the 80s, I think, possibly, for moving guys and having an eye in the sky. Gene Michael used to be the guy up in the stands with a walkie-talkie at one point.
Wow, I didn't realize they got fined for that. That's crazy to think of it now.
I don't remember all the particulars, but yes, he was one of the pioneers of that. It was really the position. Theoretically, it was the position guys, but they were probably out there trying to steal signs. I mean, right.
And just to jump backwards a quick second, Take Me Out to the Ball Game was originally written in 1908 and was first performed at a baseball game in Game 4 of the World Series in 1934.
Wow, awesome stuff. Yeah, wow.
Just to find that out, it was also a movie with Frank Sinatra in 1949.
Jack, you were at that. Were you at that game, Jack?
Well, no, I couldn't get a ticket. It was sold out. The World Series Game 4.
In 1934, I mean, I couldn't even tell you who played in that.
Listen, I could tell you the golden age. I mean, I actually really did live through some of it. In the 77 World Series, I went to the Yankee-Dodger World Series. You could park your darn car. I got there early enough, and I parked for free 5 minutes from the stadium. They have a market by Yankee Stadium. I parked there, no worries about getting a ticket. Went to all 3 World Series games, 5 minutes from my car's the stadium. Try doing that today, your car's going to get towed.
Absolutely. Or
without a doubt.
Or stripped, one or the other.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I know that when I went to, I've been to the new Yankee Stadium once. I've been to old Yankee Stadium once.
I'd like to, speak to Keith about yesterday's game and just make a quick statement and then let Keith take it, all hear what he has to say. Pretty impressive showing by Brian Hoyer, quarterback in New England. There's a chance he might be QBing for them this year.
Took 25 minutes. Took 25 minutes to make it happen.
If Mac Jones slips just a little bit, Belichick is gutsy enough to put Hoyer in because Hoyer's one of his favorites.
Actually, I think Belichick, like myself, has seen Brian Hoyer play in actual games, and that will not happen unless he's very desperate. But we did talk this morning, Jack, that you would definitely bring up that your favorite NFL quarterback threw a touchdown last night.
And Belichick is innovative. He's platooning offensive coordinators. They're battling it out for the starting offensive coordinator position. I've never seen anything like this before.
This is where I think he may have lost his mind. I don't know what he's thinking about. This is not working out well. It's not working out well in camp and practices. The offense has been a disaster so far in camp. And it's affecting Mac Jones. It's affecting the growth of the line. You got 2 guys, nobody knows who's in charge. They're trying to change the scheme, and I'm starting to have a bad feeling about my optimism of this season.
I mentioned this to Byron. Could this be used as somewhat of a crutch that Belichick kind of sees the writing on the wall here and says that this team's not going to be very good, and I'm going to try to take some of the responsibility away from the players and put it more on my coaches, so that if we start off not doing so well, like if we start off and go 1-3, or I guess 2-2 would still even consider it a success, but 0-4 and 1-3 would not be. That he could then say, "Yep, I got to change the momentum here, so we're going to switch from Patricia to Judge, or from Judge to Patricia." Actually, and I would probably start with Judge initially, because if you're not going to win, you might as well take out the guy who's used to losing most recently, although they both were.
It's possible. Listen, I can't get in Bill Belichick said. I don't know what he thinks about. It could be a ploy for that exact reason. But getting off to a bad start is not unusual, because this team last year got off like 2-4, I think, before they got it going. I don't know. Changing a scheme is hard enough, right? Change your offensive coordinator is hard enough. You don't name an official one. You got 2 guys. And besides that, you're going to change your entire scheme on top of things with a second-year quarterback in an important year in his growth. And that's a lot to throw in a one pot. And
But if you just look at the track record of Judge and Patrizia, what they did as head coaches, I mean, Patrizia was bad with the Lions. Judge was absolutely dreadful when he ran the Giant offense. They let go of Jason Garrett, the Giants, as the offensive coordinator, because Jason Garrett did a not too good of a job, a poor job with what he had on balance, you could say. But Judge was worse. Didn't he quarterback sneak on 2nd and 9 or something like that? That's how he lost it. He was just dreadful with the Giant offense. Now, you could look and say, well, what kind of weapons did they have? But offensive coordinators, it's their job to be innovative.
For a team and a coach who's done such a good job over his career of putting players in positions where they can succeed, changing their position, schemes, whatever it might be. for Bill Belichick to take guys who Joe Judge was a very accomplished special teams coach when he was with the Patriots. They had very good special teams. Matt Patricia has a brilliant defensive mind. They had really good defensive units when he was with the Patriots. And you take those guys and you say, we won't put them in those positions. We'll put them on offense. When you need help in both of those positions, by the way, they were not great on special teams last year. They were dreadful on defense the second part of the season. But we're not going to use those guys in the places they're most proficient. I do not know what's going through his mind right now. I don't.
Hey, but that was the same thing. Like, I mean, this is a little bit of a page out of Andy Reid's book. Mm-hmm. Hey, let's take our tight ends coach and our offensive line defensive coordinator. You know, that's what happened. And actually, the defense, he wound up being the scapegoat that year because the defense wasn't even playing that badly, and they wound up canning him because obviously it wasn't working and the team was losing.
You know, there could be some nepotism here involved. He may not want to make Steve Belichick look bad by putting Patricia back on the defensive side of the ball and giving him more power because Steve Belichick, maybe someday he'll be a good coach, but he's got some growing to do. Gerard Mayo is really the guy who should be calling the plays there and being the defensive coordinator if it's not going to be Matt Patricia. And I'm a little concerned if there's real nepotism going on because he's not the only Belichick on the staff. The other kid's there too, in a much lesser role, but he hasn't shown me that he's got the chops yet. And it's not that he might, but he needs to grow a little bit and learn. And I think there's too much responsibility on his shoulders right now.
Kind of reminds me a little with the Jets when Weeb Ewbank, going back to the Namath days after they won the Super Bowl. When he was stepping down as head coach himself, he had Walt Michaels, an established defensive coordinator, loyal assistant, but he gave the head coaching position to his son-in-law, Charlie Winner. But he didn't live up to his last name.
No, he didn't do very well, but he had some head coaching experience. He coached in the Cardinals.
Yeah. Correct, but still, Walt Michaels should have been the heir apparent. He kind of wonders, just playing out at New England, is it possible that Bill Belichick's going to take a role of just running the team, being like a president's, vice president's position, or whatever the heck you want to call it, and in charge of doing all the hirings, and he's going to hire maybe Stevie Belichick over, the other coordinators, and I don't know, but make the other coordinators happy by giving them a nice little bump up in pay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Bob Kraft would allow that to happen. And I'm not sure that when Belichick walks away from coaching, he's not walking away entirely. I don't think he wants half a plate. He wants it all. I think when he goes, he's going all the way.
Right. I think he likes being in control too much.
Yep.
To not be in control and to be able, like, how do you coach a team when you have Big Brother over top of you? That's part of the other issue with that. So that's what would happen. It's like, if they're having a bad season and all of a sudden he'd be like, no, I think this team's got something here. You're gone. I'm going to go back to coaching. It's like you'd always be kind of concerned with that. And that's what I would see. So I'm not a big proponent of that. I agree. I think that when Belichick walks away, he walks away completely.
One of the reasons he walked away from the Jet job originally, because he wasn't going to have Parcells looking over his shoulder. Even if that was a real deal, right? That might have been a sham anyway. But even if that was going to be the case, he was never going to take that job and have Belichick looking over his shoulder.
Right. Exactly. For the same exact reason.
Right.
So, and that's what I foresee. That's why I think that when he finally does retire, which is probably going to be in about 2 years, I think he's got 2 more years left, and then he's going to retire. Or it could be as early as this year. If this is a bad year for the Patriots, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it depends. I think Robert Kraft is the key guy. If Robert Kraft puts no heat on Belichick and Belichick truly feels he could run the organization how he wants, he's under no pressure. I just think he's a football lifer. He does it until he drops, basically. I mean, you get some people like that, okay? They just want to keep going. That's what they love doing. That's what they are. But if Kraft is really pressuring him, okay, I mean, it's not inconceivable, and I know I talked with Keith about this before, but it's not inconceivable that if the Patriots have a really bad year, go like 6-11, which is a possibility, Kraft might decide to go in another direction. It's not inconceivable.
At one time, I would have said it was. I'm not so sure with some of the things that are going on right now that it isn't possible it could happen. And I think Belichick, I do think as far as his plans, I think it is very important to him to win a Super Bowl without Tom Brady. I do. And I think he'll stay, as long as they let him stay, trying to do that.
I think he'd like to. I don't know. I mean, to us, we like to point it out, well, it's important, this and that. But Belichick himself is taking the high road on that. And when asked, he says, no, I couldn't have won a Super Bowl without Tom Brady. He's sometimes you become content. And you figure, no, he's the greatest of all time. I needed him to win a Super Bowl. And by saying that and going down that road, as a coach, he tends to be given more credit. Because now, and we know, we know Belichick was the single most important person in probability to, them winning a championship. Any NFL coaches, for the most part, when you win all those championships. Whatever.
They needed each other. That's clear. They needed each other, but the dynamic changed when Tommy went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. I think that changes Belichick's mindset a little bit, that I really need to win one. He's going to say whatever he's going to say in public, which isn't a lot anyway.
Can you imagine, guys, had Belichick made nice to Brady all along, tried to accommodate him? Brady probably never leaves New England, and he's probably the quarterback now. And can you imagine the dynamic? He wouldn't have gotten the Super Bowl at Tampa Bay. He'd still be playing with them. People would be saying, oh, Brady's got to be maybe at the end of the line. And Belichick would be saying, no, he's my guy. He could be quarterback as long as he wants. And
the owner of Miami wouldn't have been suspended. And
the whole lost the dominoes that fell. Yeah.
We probably would have landed a man on Mars by now, probably as well.
Yeah, it's good. Hopes and dreams is kind of what I look at that.
Antonio Brown, wide receiver for the Patriots at the moment. Okay, with Brady, the quarterback.
So, another thing that I wanted to mention that Jack brought up to me yesterday, and of course it was all around Twitter the day before. Keith Hernandez, the announcer of the Mets, said some specific words saying that he didn't want to call the Phillies games because he doesn't like the way that the Phillies play, and that the Phillies style of defense isn't really, baseball. And I wanted to get your take on that, because I added a little bit of a rant, and of course Jack likes times, but we didn't get a chance to talk about this on Started Up, and I feel like this may be a better arena to do so.
I think Keith Hernandez. I've never been a big Keith Hernandez fan as a person. I thought he was kind of full of himself always. Nice, really good player, great defensive player, a clutch offensive player. A lot of the times, his numbers weren't always gaudy, but they were good. Good leader by all extent, by all reports. But I always felt like he feels like he's smarter than everybody else. When I listen to him announce, I feel that way sometimes. And for him to look at it's way. Do I think the Phillies are put together perfectly as a perfect baseball team? No, they aren't. But look around baseball. I mean, they're not. Buck's done a great job of changing the culture with the Mets, so it's probably a more fun team for him to watch these days. But he's watched a lot of Met teams over the years that were just as ill put together as this Philly team, if you want to look at them that way. And I didn't see him not showing up for those games because he was getting paid. So show up and shut your mouth. It's his job to talk about the teams. Go there, and you want to berate the team and talk them down, at least show up and let the fans kind of give you the finger up on the booth and whatever else they got to do. But, Keith Hernandez, If I'm a Philly fan, I wouldn't lose an ounce of sleep over him. If it gives the Phillies a little more impetus this weekend, then good for them.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that I hope that there's like 3 or 4 errors by the Mets over this weekend. So that.
But now let me ask you guys this: is anything Keith Hernandez said, is it untrue? The Phillies have played choppy, fundamental baseball over the years.
No, my problem is I'm not saying what he said is necessarily untrue. I think it's a flawed team that's playing good baseball right now. But for him to say I won't show up and watch it because it's not worthy of my time is what he basically was saying. That's what's wrong about this whole thing.
And on top of that, I mean, think about how defenses play these shifts. That first off, they would never have done stuff like this, like as profound as they have. They've made shifts and stuff like that, but nothing as profound as is where the third baseman's going to play left or right center field and things like that. So the whole game is in its entirety has changed. Yeah. So for him to go ahead and just go ahead and bap. That's all he's doing is bap. Like I said, it's nothing to me. He was a marginally good player who had some good defense. He had some good defense, but he played on great teams that he was the afterthought of that team, and he happened to be the best of a bad bunch when the first baseman weren't the biggest deal until after he retired. That's when you had the Mark McGwire. That's when you had Mattingly even. I would take either one of those guys over top of him. And he was just a little bit better defensive player who was a halfway decent hitter.
It was a great listen. If you took a poll just for the heck of it, and not amongst us three, and asked fans in general who was the greatest defensive first baseman of all time, there's a good chance Keith Hernandez wins that poll.
I'd probably
he's voted as such. Or you take the sports writers, there's a good chance he wins it.
I'd give him that, but Pags is right. A lot of his notoriety is because he played on a great team, in a colorful team in New York in the 80s with the Mets. And I would argue that in the time that they overlapped in New York, Don Mattingly was a much, much better ball player overall than Keith Hernandez. And if people want to talk about Keith Hernandez for the Hall of Fame, like Met fans want to do, then Don Mattingly better be getting in right with him.
Yeah, it'd be the Hall of somewhat good, not the Hall of Fame.
Right. I agree.
Well, Keith Hernandez was a former MVP, and also he was on the World Series winner, a key part of the Cardinals' 1982 teams, not just as a Met. 11 Golden Gloves to his credit, too. And how much value we put on Golden Gloves, that's a question, too. But it means for 11 years, he was an elite defender, at least.
I will tell you that Mattingly's numbers match up with his
Mattingly's 9 years a Golden Glove winner, but injuries cut Mattingly's thriller.
I was going to say Hernandez's body of work is longer because especially healthy. Mattingly played the last 5 years of his career a shell of himself. So, and Mattingly's not in the Hall of Fame because of that. He had a Hall of Fame worthy career for 6 or 7 years, but he did. Well,
guys, we should count body of work with Hall of Fame. I know you either go in as a player or as a non-player, but in the case of Mattingly, I'll make an argument. Well, he's managed 10 years in the big leagues. He was, even though they never went to a series, and his record might not look too good, he's been the longest tenured manager in Marlin history. Okay, I can argue that he was an NL Manager of the Year 1 year, even though it was a shortened season. No, I don't think Mattingly's a good manager. No, not at all. But when you're the longest tenured manager in the team's history, it should count for something.
Yeah, but I don't think Hall of Fame voters vote this. I think it's player career or managerial career. I don't think they combine the both, at least until you get to like the old timers portion of the voting. So anyway. It's hard. It's hard.
He was a 296 hitter, over how many plate appearances? I guess it was over 7,000 plate appearances.
Less than 300.
6-time All-Star.
Yeah, 100, 5-time All-Star, not 6. And 100.
I thought 6.
Nope, only 5. 162. He did win the MVP 1 year. He did win a batting title that same year, but that was as
tied with Willie Stargell that year, 79, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and two-time World Series, two-time Silver Slugger. So,
That's a
and
good
literally,
career.
it's
Not a Hall of Fame career.
not a Hall of Fame.
I
Exactly.
think one of the more charismatic players to play in New York. Does that count for something? He was on Seinfeld this shared times, right?
Oh,
Why would they pick him
Going to
up?
Hall of Fame then.
I never watched Seinfeld, guys.
It's a great show.
I know. I mean, I saw snippets of it, a minute or two, but that's at the most. So considering I never watched the show, if I became a fan, I have so many episodes to keep me going that would be like brand new to me. But I can't start with that. With all the sports on TV and all and other things to do, I mean.
I was a Seinfeld fan, and he was in one of the funnier episodes, but I'm still not putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Who was big in Seinfeld? Hernandez or George Steinbrenner?
Oh, George Steinbrenner.
Okay, because I didn't watch. I heard they were both on.
It wasn't a real Steinbrenner, obviously, but they had a fake.
No.
Because
Why didn't they have the real guy on?
Because it was an ongoing story. I mean, because George Costanza worked for the Yankees for a long time.
I could never figure out why they didn't use real guys. Take the show Happy Days. I don't think they ever had Hank Aaron on there. And he was a Milwaukee Brave icon, and Happy Days supposedly took place in Milwaukee. Why can't Hank Aaron be driving his car, getting a flat tire, and the Fonz pulls over to the side of the road to help him? Think of what you could have done with that. And then the Fonz brings Hank Aaron along for certain things. It would have been, there's so much that could have been done.
I'm now trying to reimagine television history. If Jack had been I
would have done a good job producing these shows. Yeah.
And just so that you know, just so that we're talking about how good of Hernandez was in that World Series against Boston, he batted .231. That was like a ho hum. 26 at bats, 6 hits. He didn't have a great series there, so he didn't really.
What did he do in the '82 series against Milwaukee? I don't know.
He batted .259. He batted against Atlanta in the NLCS. He batted .333, but against Milwaukee, he batted .259.
Well, how many walks did he get? Did he get a share walk?
4 walks, 2 strikeouts.
And to Peg's point about the '86 World Series, this great leader of this team, by the way, in that final inning, he was in the clubhouse getting undressed and had to go back and get dressed to go bat in that inning.
He didn't. No, Keith. He didn't want to, because he made the second out in the 9th inning. It looked like the Mets were going to lose for sure, and he didn't want to see the Red Sox celebrating on the Shea Stadium field. But he admits, to his credit, he was wrong. He wished he'd never done that.
Good,
but when he was in the locker room, he was in there with other players, and they were turning their caps backwards or something, or trying to rally. But it was wrong. He was flat out wrong with what he did.
For sure.
I mean,
right.
He admits it. He admits it, and he regrets it.
Good.
Of course he does. Of course he regrets it because they wound up. That's what you have to say. Yeah, like I said, he's just a bag of wind who tried to get a little bit of a fire put under the Philly fans, because he knows that, hey, well, maybe if I put a soundbite in there, I can get roasted by all these Philly people. That's what it is.
Do you realize if Hernandez could be young again and play baseball, and he could have it put into his contract, certain teams not to be traded to, the Phillies would probably be on that list that he wouldn't want to go to Philadelphia. He'd have a clause, Pax, in his contract. He can't be traded to Philadelphia.
I don't want him. I don't care. I don't care that he don't want to be here. There's certain players I don't want here, and if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. Like I said, he's a big bag of wind as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
he was irrelevant. He was irrelevant.
He could take the pressure the Philly fans booing, because if you could take the pressure in New York, what do you think, Keith? If you could take the pressure in New York, can you take the boo birds of Philadelphia?
I would think so, yes. I think they're, yes.
So that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. And by the looks of the way that he batted in big games, it probably would have received a lot of boos. So
look at the leadership he provided.
Did he provide leadership for that Yankee team. I can imagine Ozzie Smith was the captain of the team in St. Louis. And then I'd be willing to bet that it was either Lenny Dykstra or Gary Carter or maybe even Darryl Strawberry who had the locker room really. For the Mets.
That was kind of split. Strawberry wasn't a leader. He was a great talent. You could make an argument, but he was a bit of a flake. I don't have to tell you, like when he was with the Phillies, was Dykstra a leader? Indirectly, maybe you could make that case. But Carter, was he a leader? It's kind of hard. Ron Darling says both Carter and Hernandez were leaders. Darling is Hernandez's personal buddy, plus they're broadcasters together. When Carter was, Darling's catcher, he praises both of them. There was supposedly a little bit of a conflict there. I don't know what Keith commented on with Carter and Hernandez. They weren't always the closest. They got along, but there was something a little there. There was a tiny bit of a rivalry there, I think.
A lot of players didn't like Carter's rah-rah style and whatnot, but he was a great player. Now, you listen to other guys. That team was full of guys leading them. I would put Ray Knight on that list. I would put Mookie Wilson on that list.
Yeah.
Right.
Both
Well,
of them
supposedly with
were.
Carter, when he'd do an interview, he'd tell the interviewer, wait a second, and then he'd want to go in and maybe look in the mirror to see that he was well-groomed and then come back out. Maybe that didn't go over too well with,
Right.
Yeah, they had to get all prettied up so that he could go out that night. Baseball was a different world back then, and they would always go out there.
Since you have Hernandez stats in front of you, if he does get into the Hall of Fame, isn't his body of work with the Cardinals a little greater than the Mets? Even though I think of him but I think of him a little more as a Met, don't you, Keith? A little more.
Yeah, I think anybody in this area would for sure. I think he probably played roughly the same amount of time for both teams. Didn't he, Pags? If you're looking at
No, he played 10 years. He played 10 years with St. Louis. He played 6.5 years with the Mets.
Oh, so that
wow.
Okay.
So what do you put him in as? He's a Met broadcaster. I would put him in if he ever got into the Hall of Fame. I would put him in as a Met. But you can make an argument about, he has a little more of a body of work with the Cardinals. It's like Mike Mussina had a little more of a body of work with the Baltimore Orioles and the Yankees, and Mussina just didn't want to go in for either team. He didn't know what to say. And I don't think they put Mussina in any one particular team.
You know what? I have to take everything back. I have to take everything back about what I said about him.
Oh, no.
He has the same birthday as me.
Oh.
October 20th is his birthday, which is, that day didn't really become really special until I was born, but even then,
I love the guy now.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have to take everything back. Actually, that's not true. I don't care that he's got my birthday.
I'm going to say this: when Hernandez and Mattingly were playing, during the same time, I thought Mattingly was every bit as good a defensive first baseman as Hernandez.
Agreed.
And, no put down of Hernandez, who was great, and Mattingly was great. And the argument they tried to make in Keith Hernandez's defense, Keith was better than anyone else at taking away the bunt. How many people were bunting then? It's like.
So what? What do you say? 2 runs in a year?
Well, Hernandez, though, looked like the classic first baseman in the stance. No one had a better looking stance than Hernandez at first base. You have a still picture of a first baseman. Hernandez looked beautiful there like that, better than Mattingly looked. But Mattingly, as Billy Martin said, was like a cat at first base. He was phenomenal.
He was great.
Phenomenal first baseman, Mattingly. People don't realize that, how good he was defensively.
He played some third base left-handed for the Yankees, by the way. Not a lot, but a couple times Billy had to move him to third base in some interesting defensive swaps. So, a left-hander to be able to have the athletic ability to play third base is pretty cool.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Will there ever be a left-handed regular third baseman? You don't hear about it, but I understand the turn. If a ball's hit down the line, you have to turn to throw to first. That's a tough one, but at least you got your glove towards the line when you want to protect against an extra base hit in the later innings. You don't have to play as close to the bag either.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see a regular left-handed third baseman or a shortstop. I just don't. But
unless somebody who really starts to transcend like that, that's somebody who literally is above, above the means of everybody else. Like you'd have to really go out of your way, and it would have to be an anomaly. Like it's one of those things that that person probably bats both ways and throws both ways. You know what I mean? Because realistically, you have a left-handed batter like Bryce Harper. He bats left-handed, but he throws and catches right. You know what I mean? He throws right-handed. So, and there's a lot of players like that. There's a lot of players who will bat left-handed, but are throw right-handed.
You got to remember who's running baseball now, Rob Manfred. There's always a chance to put a rule in that we're going to start, running the opposite way around the bases because fans see that.
Yeah, we're going to start with a man on third, and we're going to go third, second, first, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so that way you could use a left-handed third baseman. So Rob Manfred might want that.
Yeah, the 3-4-5 double play.
I have to get Major League Baseball without ripping Rob Manfred at least once.
Hey, I understand. I mean, it's as they say in the commercial, the guys who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
Yep.
I don't like that segment. Obviously, they don't try hard to ruin it. They just listen. Even putting the run at second base, extra inning games could go on. I don't want an 18-inning game.
Why not?
Brutal.
Why
I
not?
hate it.
They happen so infrequently. They happen so infrequently that it shouldn't matter. Those 18 games, I remember the Phillies being in like a 24-inning game and such like that, where the pitchers are coming in and they're doing that. I mean, that's like those grinding games are part of what baseball is about.
And being able to recover from them afterwards is the mark of a good baseball team, and that's all taken away. So
I went to that game that Jeter made the catch and dove into the stands against the Red Sox, and I went the next day also. The Yankees were playing the Mets at Shea Stadium, and the Yankees got trounced the next day. They had nothing left after playing that, the 14-inning game with the Red Sox.
It happens. I mean, it's part of the game, though. I mean, you might change it. I want to see those games. What's better than nail biter 18-inning game? You don't, and as Pag said, you don't get them every day. That's why they're so fun to watch, in my mind.
Right. It's like they switch to these day-night doubleheaders now where you have to leave the stadium to come back. I mean, traditional doubleheaders were fun for people. You know what I mean? That's you watch both games. You know what I mean? And even back in, what was it, in the 40s, late 40s, they would have doubleheader all-star games. You know what I mean?
60s, early 60s, I think they did that for 4 years or so. Yeah.
Right. I thought it coincided with 4 years after the World War.
Yeah, they weren't double headers, but they played 2 games a year, not the same day.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah, they played 2 All-Star games.
Yeah, see, that's all new stuff to me. So, but like I said, I remember seeing that and being like, oh, there's 2 All-Star games. They had a double headers, but I guess that makes more sense if they took, they had a week off and they played 2 games instead of just 1, and then you could actually play them like real games rather than having to worry about putting in every pitcher and getting everybody in there to play. So
yeah, I don't really know what the catalyst was for it either. It's something I'll have to check out because now I'm interested. These little tidbits of trivia I like to know.
The anomalies of baseball's lore. So, but anyway, we are through our 2-hour segments here. I appreciate Keith for coming on. As I know he's about to jump off to another show here. He's one of the busiest guys here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. So, and tomorrow we have Dr. Paul Seminger. Hopefully I didn't kill his name. I think I said that right. With the debate show. So it's going to be myself, Jack, and Dr. Paul for the first time in a few weeks. It's not we're getting the old band back together again. So for Jack and Keith, this is Jamie Pags saying so long and see us tomorrow. Have a great day.